Hey everyone, I hope all of you guys are doing good and staying safe. In the previous video with the same diagram, we understood as to what VPC peering was all about. In this video, we are going to walk through some concepts in terms of VPC endpoints. So let's say, for example, if you have a VPC which has a private subnet within which you have a resource, and it would like to talk to an internet-related AWS service such as S3 or DynamoDB and so on, you can use something called as VPC endpoint to ensure that your entire traffic is private in nature and it traverses over Amazon's backbone network. So that's the first key point I want you to remember. The second point I want you to remember is VPC endpoint comes in two flavors. The first one is of type gateway, and the second one is of type interface. We already have gateway endpoints for S3 and DynamoDB, which we saw under manage prefix list. But then all the other internet-related AWS services or even resources that reside within your VPC also have something called as interface endpoints. So interface endpoints create a network interface within your VPC to access those services, whereas gateway endpoint sits on the gateway at the edge of the VPC, like an internet gateway or a NAT gateway, and it has its own set of IP addresses with which we will access that internet-related AWS service like S3 and DynamoDB. So you have two options. S3 itself has an interface endpoint. S3 itself has a gateway endpoint. So now you can ask me, Akshay, okay, take a moment back, take a step back. S3 has an interface endpoint and S3 also has a gateway endpoint. What are the advantages? So there are some advantages for S3 when you use an interface endpoint. Let's say that you would like to peer to VPCs or connect to VPCs, and from both the VPCs, you would like to talk to the S3 service. If you have a gateway endpoint, it will not work. But if you have an interface endpoint, it will work. Let's say that you would like to access from your on-premise infrastructure through the VPC endpoint to the S3 bucket. Then in that way, from your on-premise environment, if you use a gateway endpoint of S3 on your VPC, you cannot access. But if you use an interface endpoint, you can access. So there are some limitations when you use a gateway endpoint for S3, but there are some advantages when you use the interface endpoint of S3. So now it has become clear that you have two types of endpoints. One is interface endpoint, which creates a network interface inside your VPC, and the other one is a gateway endpoint that is only available to S3 and DynamoDB. But are there any other concepts for VPC endpoint? Yes. So there is a concept called as VPC endpoint policy, which is a network level authorization. So I can say that from my VPC, through the VPC endpoint, you can only talk to this particular S3 bucket, or you can only talk to that particular S3 bucket. And you can do a policy as a network policy on your VPC endpoint called as a VPC endpoint policy for authorization. So that's also something that you can do. And then if you choose your respective route table for your VPC, the route will be automatically added by the VPC endpoint for you. So let's say that this private subnet has its own route table and it would like to talk to the S3 service. All I have to do is create a gateway endpoint or an interface endpoint for S3, and then go ahead and select my private subnets route table, and the route to access the S3 service will automatically be added for me. So these are the concepts in terms of VPC endpoints to ensure that all of your traffic from your VPC to an internet-related AWS service is private in nature and goes through Amazon's backbone network through the concept of VPC endpoint. So I'll walk you through the console in the next video of creating a VPC endpoint, and then we will go ahead and take a look at how do you do VPC peering between two VPCs. So I'll catch you in the next video. Have a great day, guys.